I didn't know. No one said anything. Why didn't someone speak up? So often we hear those phrases from leaders in organizations following some form of scandal. It's been on my mind a lot recently, particularly with regard to what's been happening in the very seat of power in Australia, with regards to the issue of culture and especially consent. In corporate life, we tend to assume that lack of objection equals consent. That if somebody is walking past a behaviour, if somebody is sitting there while something occurs and not saying anything, that they have assented or consented to that behaviour. But we cannot make that assumption unless we know that that person holds a position of power, or unless we know for certain that in the culture of that organisation, speaking out and speaking up are what's expected. They're not acts of courage. They're not acts done at the fringes by brave outliers. They're just what is accepted and what is expected and what is encouraged in that culture. However, more often than not, neither of those conditions exist. The person in question, the person who has not given their consent or assent to a behaviour, but has also not spoken out about that behaviour, that person, more often than not, is not in a position of power. So if you're in a position of power and you walk past a behaviour, it's the classic adage, the standard you walk past is the standard you accept, yeah? So if you're in a position of power and you see something happening and you don't act on it, you have impliedly consented to that. You cannot make that assumption about someone who does not have power. Because if I am in a position where I am not the leader, where I do not have power, where I do not feel that I am okay to speak out, then I will stay quiet. Not because I think it's okay, but because I am afraid, because I am perhaps in fear for my job, my reputation, my relationship with the people around me. There's a myriad of reasons why people don't speak up. And that's why it is so dangerous to assume that not saying something is the same as saying yes. Now, this conversation in Australia recently has very much taken place around the issue of sexual assault. And it is absolutely valid in that context. It is also valid in a much broader organisational context around other sorts of aberrant behaviour in corporations, ranging from excessive working hours to bullying, to singling out people, and to poor leadership in general. All of those things occur in organisations every day, and nobody says anything. They don't say something about the leader who's yelling and screaming. They don't say something about the leader who's showing excessive favoritism. They don't say something about the fact that everyone seems to be expected to work until midnight and front up again at 6 a.m. And for some bizarre reason, the fact that they don't say anything has led so many leaders to believe that what they're doing is okay, because no one said anything. The reason no one said anything is because you haven't built a culture that makes those people feel safe to say something. If people feel safe to say something, it's no longer courageous to speak out. And absolutely, if you know for 100% certain that you have built a culture where people are empowered to speak up, where they can have their say without fear or favour, then you can relax a little bit if people are saying nothing about things that are going on. But it does not absolve you from the requirement to check in from time to time to make sure that we're still culturally okay, to make sure that there's no reason why somehow those people have suddenly decided they can't speak out. So for all the leaders out there, now is the time to realise that silence is not assent. Silence is not consent. And understanding people's relative power position is critical in understanding what their actions and what they say or don't say really mean.